Welcome to the Real Crime Diary Daily Dose of Crime. Today, we dive into a shocking case that spans over half a century, involving the world's longest-serving death row inmate. What happens when justice takes 58 years to unfold? Brace yourselves for a tale of injustice, perseverance, and a legal system put to the test. Picture this. It's 1966 in Japan. A horrific crime sends shockwaves through the nation. 4 people brutally murdered, their bodies discovered in a burned-out home. Enter Iwao Hakamada, a former boxer, who soon finds himself at the center of this gruesome tale. Despite his protests of innocence, Hakamada is convicted and sentenced to death. But this is just the beginning of an extraordinary story that would span over half a century. For 48 long years, Hakamada languished on death row, never wavering from his claim of innocence. His case would go on to become one of the most controversial in Japanese history, raising serious questions about the country's justice system and the very nature of truth itself. Picture this: a quiet town in central Japan, 1966. A prominent executive, his wife, and their 2 children are found dead in their burned-out home. The police are desperate for answers, and they think they've found their man in Iwao Hakamada, a local boxer. The trial that followed was swift and decisive. Prosecutors painted Hakamada as a cold-blooded killer, presenting evidence that seemed damning at the time. They claimed to have found blood-stained clothing hidden in a miso tank, linking Hakamada to the crime scene. His confession, obtained after intense interrogation, sealed his fate. Despite Hakamada's desperate pleas of innocence, the court found him guilty. In 1968, he was sentenced to death. But as the gavel fell, little did anyone know that this case was far from closed. The evidence that seemed so solid would soon start to crumble, leaving us to wonder what really happened on that fateful night. Imagine spending nearly 3 decades fighting for a chance to prove your innocence. That's exactly what Iwao Hakamada and his sister endured. Their battle for justice was a marathon, not a sprint. For 27 long years, they waited, only to have Hakamada's first appeal for a retrial denied. But they refused to give up. Then in 2014, a glimmer of hope appeared. New evidence emerged that cast doubt on Hakamada's conviction. This breakthrough was enough to secure his release from prison after 48 years behind bars. But freedom didn't mean the fight was over. The legal system moved at a glacial pace, with the case bouncing between courts for years. What was this new evidence that finally tipped the scales? And why did it take so long for the truth to come to light? As we'll see, the answers to these questions would shake the very foundations of the case against Hakamada. In a stunning turn of events, the truth behind Hakamada's conviction has finally come to light. The court's ruling was nothing short of groundbreaking, revealing a disturbing web of fabricated evidence and misconduct. At the heart of this revelation was the blood-stained clothing, supposedly worn by Hakamada during the murders. For years, this had been a cornerstone of the prosecution's case. But now, the court has concluded that these items were planted by investigators, a shocking abuse of power that tainted the entire investigation. But that's not all. DNA evidence, long considered the gold standard in forensic science, didn't match Hakamada. This crucial detail had been overlooked or deliberately ignored for decades. Perhaps most disturbing of all was the revelation about Hakamada's confession. The court found that it was obtained through inhumane interrogation techniques, raising serious questions about the ethics of the investigation and the reliability of confessions obtained under duress. As these pieces of the puzzle fell into place, the picture became clear. The evidence against Hakamada had been manipulated from the start. The truth, hidden for so long, was finally emerging from the shadows. After 58 long years, justice finally prevailed for Iwao Hakamada. The 88-year-old former boxer was acquitted of the charges that had haunted him for over half a century. This landmark decision has sent shockwaves through Japan's legal system, forcing a hard look at its practices. Japan's notoriously high conviction rate of over 99% has long been a subject of scrutiny. Hakamada's case throws this into sharp relief, raising uncomfortable questions about how many other innocent people might be behind bars or even on death row. The implications of this case stretch far beyond one man's freedom. It's reignited passionate debates about the death penalty in Japan, one of the few developed nations that still practices capital punishment. Critics argue that cases like Hakamada's prove the irreversible nature of the death penalty is too risky in a system where mistakes can and do happen. This acquittal could be a turning point for Japan's legal landscape. It may lead to reforms in interrogation practices, evidence handling, and the appeals process. More importantly, it might make judges and prosecutors more cautious about pursuing convictions at all costs. But the question remains, will this case be enough to spark real change? Or will it be seen as an isolated incident in an otherwise functional system? As we wrap up today's episode, the case of Iwao Hakamada serves as a chilling reminder of the potential for injustice within any legal system. 58 years. That's how long it took for the truth to finally come to light. It's a sobering thought that makes us question, how many others might be sitting behind bars, wrongfully convicted, their voices unheard? This case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the reliability of evidence, the pressure on investigators to solve high-profile cases, and the very nature of our justice systems. What safeguards can be put in place to prevent such tragedies in the future? How can we ensure that the pursuit of justice doesn't lead to the greatest injustice of all, the conviction of an innocent person? As we ponder these questions, I encourage you to share your thoughts. What do you think can be done to prevent wrongful convictions? How can we balance the need for justice with the protection of individual rights? Your insights could spark important conversations. Join us next time as we delve into another gripping true crime story, always seeking the truth in the complex world of criminal justice.